And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath was pacified. That is Esther chapter 7, verses 9 through 10. And this is Resisting Balaam, a podcast where we seek to encourage the saints to stand firm with him on his word against all of the accusations made by the world, the flesh, and the devil, as we engage the culture of death that demands the sacrifice of our children. I am Callie, and I want to thank you for watching this episode. Go ahead and like and share. Have a good discussion in the comments section. We would really appreciate any support that you could give. Go check us out at patreon.com/resisting Balaam. Okay. The other day, I saw the head of Students for Life post a graphic, calling for solidarity and for the pro-life movement to come together as one voice, where we need to have true and honest conversations together, but how the pro-choice or pro-abortion movement is seeking to divide us. They seek to divide the courts and divide us in the laws, and how now is the time for all of us to come together in unity and, in her words, join together in true and honest discussion. And I reached out to her again. I really would like to have true and honest civil discussion with her or any of these other pro-life organizations, specifically dealing with equal justice. And I've reached out to pro-life organizations and their heads for several years to have open either debate, formal moderated debate, civil discussion, panel discussion, even you spend an hour and present a position paper on why we should continue to exclude mothers that kill their own preborn children, and present an hour paper saying why we should have equal justice. I've opened it up to frame the question however they think best portrays their position, because that's what I want, is honest discussion. I don't want to right out of the gate frame it, even though I do think it's honest, and that is where I would take it. I want them to frame the question and their position in their own words. I want to hear what they have to say publicly, and then deal with their arguments and how they say things publicly. And so I've reached out offering to have these kinds of public discussions in order to, one, give them an opportunity to say exactly what their position is, why that's their position, and to teach their followers, the people that they are leading, in a way to defend the position that they hold. And give me an opportunity to deal with their position as they would say it, rather than having to lay out their position for them as I see it. I've had these conversations behind the scenes with many of them, and they're all unwilling to have these discussions publicly. So I wanted to go through some of the reasons that they have given me. I'm going to try not to get into speculation as to why and this and that, but just deal with some of the comments that they have made to me personally about denying any type of public discussion about the prosecution of women in particular. Like I've said before, I hate that we have to have the discussion in terms of the woman, but because of pro-life propaganda and making them the only demographic that has been excluded from the judicial process for criminal homicide, we're forced to have the discussion in terms of the woman, rather than just blanket saying the laws of criminal homicide that we have ought to be applied equally to all forms of criminal homicide, to all principal actors, accomplices, and co-conspirators. So some of the comments that I've gotten from groups like Equal Rights Institute, Students for Life Action, LifeSite News, Life Action News, Texas Right to Life, Ohio Right to Life, National Right to Life, Texas Alliance for Life, what's the Scott Klusendorf one? Life Institute. So here's some of the comments that I've gotten over the years, and then I'll get to some of the comments that I've received over the past couple of days. One, I'm not going to have this discussion with you publicly because you're an abolitionist, and abolitionists have said that they argue in bad faith, and they have said mean things about the pro-life movement and slander the pro-life movement, etc. So what? Deal with the issues. I'm not that person that did that, if that's even a real thing, but that's a comment that was made quite often by some of these organization heads. Usually, when they get called out for calling out pro-choice people for not debating them publicly, and you say, okay, well, then debate me. And the reasons they give for not debating is, we're on the same side. We want the same thing. And that's just absolutely not true. We don't want the same thing, and we're not on the same side. Oftentimes that will also, I'll get comments from them behind the scenes of, I'll debate a pro-choice person who is a vile, nasty slanderer because I expect that from them, but you're a Christian and abolitionists have said vile, slanderous things to me in the past. I'll have them make comments starting out, we're on the same side, we want the same thing, and then turn into, we're not on the same side, I want nothing to do with you, I will not have this public discussion with you and platform you whatsoever. I don't want my listeners to hear what you have to say. I had one organization leader say that his boss would not allow him to debate us publicly, and then got mad that we released that information because it was told to us in private. And on a phone call with that guy in particular, he wanted to possibly set out a schedule of meeting for coffee for some unidentified period of time to become friends so that he would be able to trust that we could have this discussion. I've had organization leaders tell me that this is not a topic that they want to discuss publicly, that it would sidetrack the pro-life movement and the solidarity that we all seek together in saving babies. What's interesting about things like that is when they do that, they'll turn around and make public statements about prosecuting women never being part of the pro-life movement, never will be. So that to me is crazy. Some of the more recent ones that I've had are, I'm too busy right now to deal with the topic of prosecution of women because we have too much on our plate right now in our organization. I had one organization leader tell me that he does not have confidence in any of the leadership in their organization to be able to have this type of conversation publicly, and he does not want to have their organization look as idiotic as the Southern Baptist Convention does. His words, not mine. He told me that he does not feel that there are any leaders in their particular organization that are capable of having this discussion publicly. And this is an organization that prides themselves on training young men and women on how to defend the pro-life position. Yet as a leader, he has no confidence in the ability of the other leaders to have this discussion. That one was at least truthful. I've recently also had organization heads tell me that this is not an important issue yet to have as far as a public discussion. We have more work to do before we get to that point. All of these types of things, even when I try to make it in the best light possible for them to have the discussion, they're unwilling to do it. And what's interesting about some of these organizations like Students for Life, Ohio Right to Life, Texas Right to Life, Live Action News, is behind the scenes. They're telling me, well, you know, our organization right now is a mixed bag on this. We're starting to have more people that are taking the equal justice position when it comes to the criminalization aspect versus excluding mothers from the judicial process. And I'm like, great, now's the perfect time then to give them an opportunity to hone their skills, to come up with their positions and defend it. And they all say pretty much the same thing, that now is not the time. We need to have solidarity. We need to speak with one voice. We're trying to work these things out. But yet they are unwilling to do it publicly. And another comment that I got was, maybe when the abolitionist movement grows a little bit more, then it'll be necessary to have discussions like this one publicly. And really, it's a shame. You know, these organizations and organization heads will come out publicly saying, we will never support laws that make women vulnerable to prosecution. And then they'll never defend the position itself. I'm going to do another video at some point to talk about some of the things they do say publicly, and refute those arguments, which is hard because, you know, you're dealing with something that they've said a while ago, and rather than, hey, let's sit down and reason together. Let's talk this through civilly, with honesty, and have these discussions, and not attack the person, but really take apart these arguments. So if you know any of these pro-life organizations, write them letters, send them emails. Be polite. Hey, I would really like to see one of these discussions publicly so that I'm better equipped to defend the pro-life position. And hopefully, some of these organizations will start taking us up on our offers. Now I'm going to do a second part to this video here in a couple days, maybe a week or so, and do the same thing, but not dealing with pro-life organizations, but rather deal with religious institutions and leaderships and their unwillingness to join us in this discussion. So I would encourage you to get your friends together, write letters, write emails, comment on their stuff publicly, saying that I really would like to have civil, honest discussion with them publicly. I've even gone so far as to say that I will pay their speaking fees that they normally charge in order to have this conversation. I really do want to just sit down. Doesn't have to be debate. Doesn't have to be a formal setting. I think those are helpful, but it can be just, hey, let's sit down and film a discussion together, you know, or do it over Zoom. I'd rather it be in person, but I want to show an example, that these discussions are important, but that we can have important discussions with people that we disagree with passionately, but with honesty, and not be vile, not be slanderous, and have them civilly, with respect for the other person, and really come together and go, these are the reasons why, and deal with those arguments. So if you can, go hit all of the pro-life organizations up, send them links to me. I would really enjoy having one of these discussions. And until then, join the resistance and wield the sword of truth. Our Lord has left us here to navigate through this world as priests in the kingdom of God. Apply the mind of Christ and battle against the culture that hates God